Hey everyone, proud to tell you about Coptales and Cocktails' newest sponsor, a first responder clothing company called Emery Lane. Emery Lane has a large variety of products for women and children, and they're quickly increasing their offerings for men like Howard here as well. The thing I personally love about Emery Lane is they are actually family owned and operated by a law enforcement officer's wife. And all their products are actually designed here in the USA in Nashville, Tennessee. Emery Lane has one of the largest selections of exclusively designed first responder apparel on the market today. You got to go check them out on Instagram or Facebook at Emery Lane Co., as in company, and use promo code STICKS for 20% off your next order. That's promo code STICKS, STICKS, for 20% off your next order at emerylaneco.com, EMORYLANECO.com.
Man, Sean, you're good at that.
I'm pretty good at this, man. I might even have a potential future in television.
I think you do. I mean, if you can find a TV gig, that would be fantastic.
Man, that would be an amazing opportunity.
Yeah, but seriously, Emery Lane,
fantastic. People. Yeah, happy to be have them part of the podcast.
We like family businesses because we have families and we like families.
We do.
Right. So
we like Coptales and cocktails.
Oh, yeah, we do. Hey, you want to start with the cocktail today?
But of course.
Okay, so today we are drinking cut water out of San Diego.
Beautiful place, San Diego. I think the average temp there is like 72 degrees year round.
It's good living, man. It's real good living. And if you go what, like inland, like 20 miles, you're in the desert.
Yeah.
And it's completely different. But today we're drinking cut water tequila margaritas because our guest is from San Diego and she likes to have.
You say she?
I did say she.
She, San Diego. My father was in the military, was stationed there and the naval base for quite a while.
Oh,
they've got some Navy SEALs out there. Is she a Navy SEAL?
She's not a Navy SEAL.
Okay.
Hey, Sean.
Yes, sir.
Imagine that you're an attractive person.
I am. Go ahead. That's something you have to do, Howard. You have to imagine that you are.
Okay. So imagine that you're pretty. Okay.
Okay.
And imagine that you decide that you want to be a law enforcement officer.
Yeah, this is sounding like we're discussing my career here?
Hold on a second, man. I'm gonna tell you a story. But imagine that you're female.
Okay.
Yeah. See, this is a little bit different.
We're taking a detour.
You're all right with being semi-attractive as a male.
Okay.
Right.
Deal.
It's a little different being very attractive as a female, right?
You know, it is. Hey, Tulsa's a large department, and it is tough for the profession can be tough for females in general.
Sure.
Both from the officers themselves. I don't think it's that bad, at least from my own experience working with the way that males and females on the department work, but the public sometimes can, have a different perception of them, an unfair one at times, treat them a little bit different.
Well, the thing is most people think that females are a little weaker. And I'm here to tell you that my mom is 5'1" and I'm 6 foot and she can kick my butt any day. This is a misnomer of that size and thing. So imagine you're a police officer. Imagine you're attracted. You go into the police force. They're like, you're a great cop. We're gonna start utilizing you in Vice.
Oh yeah, that's a popular spot for productive female officers. You get to do some undercover work in some seedy situations.
And imagine you're in a place like Chicago. It's bigger, right?
A little bit
bigger than Kuwait, Oklahoma.
A little bit.
Yeah. And imagine you're out there and you know what Chicago's kind of known for, right?
Being the Windy City.
Yeah, it's windy, but it's also
Wrigley Park, hot dogs.
It also has the Mafia.
I
will ask you to do me a favor.
Yes.
Right. So she gets kind of close with some Mafia folks. I mean, and then she gets to kind of take them down.
Wow.
Well, yeah, it's pretty cool. Huh?
That's our guest today.
Yeah, her name is Lisa Lockwood. Lisa, we are glad to have you here today. We appreciate, as always, when our guests do not pick Apple Crown as the drink of choice because it's horrible.
Yeah. I have no experience with Apple Crown, so we're good there.
You should take it from us. It is horrible. So, Lisa, we've got you on today. You've got a pretty interesting story. You've done quite a few things, right? So, I mean, can you kind of start from the beginning, kind of tell us what you did as a lad, or a lass, I should say, what you did as a lass, where you kind of, how your path through life kind of ended you up with us today. I mean, other than the fact of good fortune of hanging out with my attractive self and my semi-ugly co-host,
I'm honored to be here, guys. So I grew up on the south side of Chicago, a family of 7 kids. And I just was an introvert kid who loved to read. So out of the 7 siblings, only 2 graduated high school, and that was me and my oldest sister. So I was like kind of the anomaly who wanted to go to college and, figure something else that was good for my life. My sisters were teenage moms. And I just said, that's not what I want. So I ended up researching and trying to figure out what I want to do. In the meantime, while I'm commuting to college, my mother, without me knowing, entered me in the Miss Illinois USA pageant. So I have no pageant experience, nothing, but she entered me. I get a phone call one day. Hey, you've been accepted to compete. I'm like, how did this happen? So I'm like, hey, scholarship opportunity. Let me go do the best that I can. And I did. And I was nervous, didn't know how to walk a runway, had no experience. I was a waitress. So I did the best I could, placed 25th out of 205 ladies. And it's like, okay, that's behind me. Now what? Focus on school. And then I was talking to a guy who happened to be there doing an ROTC program, getting his college paid for. And I said, oh, that's interesting. How does that work? So I started researching the branches. I knew I didn't want to be on a ship. I knew that I didn't want to be a Marine. I'm like, oh my God, I was, intimidated by all of that. So last 2 were Army and Air Force. Went to an Army recruiter and then ultimately Air Force. And when I went in, he's like, are you sure you really want to join the military? I'm like, yes, I do. I want an education. So I tested, took the exam, studied with my dad, who was teaching me mechanics inside the hood of a car. And I had no knowledge of any of that, but I was a good student and I ended up doing well and scoring high in the mechanical field and ended up joining the United States Air Force. So it was a weird kind of path for me, but so worth it. I loved it. I loved the discipline of it. I love the regimen. I love the patriotism, everything that I learned about the country that I didn't learn in high school. It was so rewarding. So I ended up serving my 4 years. I was airman in Operation Desert Storm, went overseas, Saudi Arabia for 90 days, had some really crazy experiences there because women aren't allowed to drive in Saudi Arabia. And here we are, allied forces. And my MO was a heavy equipment operator. So I was driving tractor trailers and buses and wreckers and all these crazy vehicles on the road by myself. And I'd be being, veered off a road by Saudis, and we're allies. But the fact that I was a woman, they didn't like that because, they didn't drive. So it was a cool experience. And when that was finished, I was Airman of the Year, Air Force wide, just because of how I had served and how I showed up in the military. So that was incredible. Awesome.
Dang right.
That is. That's amazing.
That's pretty amazing. So you're telling me that you went from being a pageant queen to a truck driver?
Yes.
Okay. As a pageant queen, you have to go up there and you have to say what your passion's about, but you also have to,
you have to talent.
Yeah. Talent.
That's America. That's Miss America.
Okay.
So Miss USA is beauty, poise, and personality. So
you don't have to have talent.
there wasn't a talent. So I was like, what do you do in community service and that sort of thing? But like I said, to me, it was, what was the end goal? The end goal is, hey, scholarship. This is great. It wasn't
Sure.
Hey, but some of those talents are weird, like baton twirling. When somebody comes out at a pageant and twirls baton, I don't know that that's actually a talent. I mean, somebody's gonna hate on me for that, but
Chad Ayers is gonna be disappointed right now.
Chad Ayers was our cheerleader. I bet you he could swirl a baton around. So you ended up being the Airman of the Year for the entire Air Force?
I did. Yeah.
Boy, that's pretty big. That's a pretty big one.
It was a big one. First for the base, and then it's submitted to. There's all kinds of different groups in the military, ESD, Electronic System Command, MAC, Tactical Air Command, etc. And then I was put in that and then got the title. When all of my supervisors went overseas during Desert Storm proper, I ended up taking care of the entire base operations for vehicle ops. And that was dignitary support and just all of the supply and that sort of thing. So I was a 2-year airman and doing the job of somebody who had been in like 6-7 years.
Wow. Did you get a sash? Like an Airman of the Year sash? No, you should have. Damn right.
No, I got money.
I got 25th on here, but I'm number 1 in the Air Force. So y'all suck it, huh? That's awesome though. So so once you got discharged, I assume that you used the GI Bill, which is wonderful. My dad was in the Air Force.
Yes.
He used the GI Bill. He came out a very educated man out of the Air Force. That's the one thing the military does very well. They educate people.
They
They
do.
do. I mean, it's an incredible opportunity for people so they don't get into college debt. I mean, you see it left and right. Look where we are right now, where people want to be bailed out. So I'm just like, I like to be able to know that I took care of myself, didn't have loans, no finance charges. So GI Bill and also the Veterans Grant they had in Illinois. So I got my full ride on my 4 years. And then after that, I started going to school, didn't really know what I wanted. I loved psychology, studied a little psychology, took some classes here and there. I worked private security graveyards so I can go to college. Still didn't know what I wanted to do, but I was working in a building, private security, and there was a police officer who'd always make the rounds in the area, would stop in and just check on different security guards in buildings. And I'd be talking to him all the time, asking him about the job, what's it like? And he's like, oh, you don't want to do it. You don't want to do it. You know, it was very discouraging. That's not for you. So I ended up taking a criminal justice class on a whim, and it was profiling of serial killers. And I was like, wow, this is really interesting because it pulls in the psychology aspect of it. And that's what got me kind of excited about law enforcement. And then I ended up doing an internship with the police department, doing a ride along with the TAC unit. And while I was on that ride along, they were responding to somebody who was shot. We got to the scene. I sat in the back seat, watched them jump out, secure the scene. And then when it was secure, they let me walk over and see the guy bleeding out dead. And I just thought, wow, these guys are amazing and powerful. Look at what they just did and what they just handled. And that was the moment. That was a defining moment that I said, I want to do the job.
And how old were you at that time?
24, 25.
Okay.
So
yeah. And I needed to wait. I needed to wait because I wanted to take the exam and I missed it. And it was every 2 years. So in the interim, I decided to become a 911 dispatcher. I said, now I'll really get my feet wet, learn all the codes, learn the way it all works behind the scenes. And it was great. So a year and a half as a 911 dispatcher, and then took the exam and then became.
You know, we've had a previous guest on here that was a 911 dispatcher. Actually, did it for the military, was a military police officer, became a dispatcher in the civilian world, and then became a police officer. And it gives you a different perspective if you spend that time behind the microphone, even before you hit the streets. And unfortunately, you know, there's not enough dispatch positions. There's not enough people who would do it. But I think it's great for anybody that does get in law enforcement if they understand that side of the microphone.
It really is. It's the respect that you have as a 911 dispatcher, knowing if you can't get in touch with a police officer, they're not responding to the radio, what that feels like, the intensity of it, knowing what information has to be conveyed to the guy on the street, the gal on the street. So that taught me that. So I knew when I was a rookie what the dispatchers are going to be looking for and not to piss them off.
Exactly.
So, you know, so that was a perfect kind of synchronicity for me.
So you, after the GI Bill, you went to college. Where'd you go to college?
I went to I went to Governor State. And then when I became a police officer, I ended up going to Lewis University for my master's.
And it takes two years is when they test for police officers. Is that?
Yeah, yes. So for that agency, that's what it was. It was a 2-year, and I missed it. So I was a 911 dispatcher for a year and a half until the next test.
And you learned all of the tricks of the trade by listening to things over the radio. It's like a podcast, but more serious, right?
And we had cameras of the cells so we could see what was going on in lockup. I used to go down there and be a matron and, you know, be the female to search. So that was part of the 911 dispatcher job. So actually having hands-on with the criminals and that sort of thing. And
the agency you work for, it was a suburb of Chicago. Is that correct?
Right. Yes. I went to Chicago Police Academy. We were put through CPD Academy, and then I worked for a suburb not far from Chicago.
Which suburb was it?
Can't say.
Oh, okay. Well, I lived up near Ravinia for a while. That's why I was asking. Maybe I saw you up there.
Way out there. No, it's a lot closer.
Way out in the Boonies. Well, so you finally got to be a police officer. Tell us about how patrol was.
It was amazing. I mean, I loved it. You probably remember, Sean, it's like the first time you are on your own without a field training officer. And it's like, really? You know, I get to go out here and just arrest people on my own.
Exactly.
So it was strumming up your own business. And we were a single person unit. So it wasn't, you know, two-man cars. So literally I was out there and I'm like, okay, this is my opportunity. So being low seniority, I was banished to midnight shift.
Yep. With some terrible days off, I'm sure.
6 and 3 rotation. So 6.
Oh,
Yeah. So, I mean, a lot of the old timers love midnight shift because they were moonlighting on their day jobs and doing security, and they hated rookies on midnights because rookies were out there trying to, hey,
trying to work.
I'm doing the job. Exactly.
Chasing bad guys.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
The old timers don't like, most of them don't. I said, they tell you, hey, kids, slow down. You know?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Stop it. They're going to expect this from you all the time.
Exactly. Literally. And yep. And you're making me have to come back you up.
Yes. That's the truth of it.
So you finally got off being a patrol officer and you kind of got moved into vice narcotics. Is that correct?
Well, I was actually in patrol for 4.5 years, but I was moonlighting, so to speak. They would call me in on day shift, so I had to do a double shift to do some vice stuff in the day and afternoon, working undercovers for sex predators on the internet. That was a big one, but kind of low profile narcotic stuff that was local, buying and doing reverse selling drugs, and that sort of thing. And my 2 years in, position on SWAT opened. And I had already been, my first year in, I put in for firearms instructor. So I became a firearms instructor. I already had that specialty and I love shooting. So, that was great. I was master marksman. And then when SWAT opened up, and because of all that activity, 2 years on the job, it wasn't just the marksman, it was being productive, that, level-headed, she can do the job. And it's like, okay, let's get her on the team. And there were no women on the team. So I was actually the first one.
Well, congratulations on that. Hey, but when you were in Vice, did you have, I'm under the understanding that you got to mess around, and I don't say mess around in that way. I mean that you got to apprehend some bad guys that were connected. Is this true?
Indeed. So that's when I actually was, I was promoted to detective after my 4.5 years. And we had, how it is, you get somebody into custody, they want to flip, they want to work off their crime. And this guy said that he can get us into a fencing operation on the south side of Chicago. So
like privacy fences, what kind of fences? Chain link,
posts and rails, real big here.
Split rail is beautiful.
Private, 6-foot privacy.
Oh yeah, you gotta have a fence around the pool, or because it's an attractive nuisance.
Exactly.
I know things. All right. So what kind of fencing company did they have?
It was a pawn shop that was a front for buying stolen goods. And then, later we found out it was Mafia owned, so this guy got us in there. But when he said, he's like, listen, I'll be willing to do this undercover, but these guys are a big deal. And this person can't look like a cop. So they brought me in. They at least said, come to work, come in early. And I came in early and they said, just wear something like you're going out to a nightclub or something to appease this guy. So that's how I showed up. And I'm going to tell you guys right now, nobody at work saw Lisa Lockwood dressed to
yeah, of course.
Make whatever. So I walked in and I just remember I was embarrassed. I mean, I was blushing, like just the head turning his head. I'm like, it's me, guys. Like, stop it. So
quit staring at me.
It was funny. And it was just like, you guys are my brothers. Stop it. So anyway, I walk into the interview room and I sit down and he just said, is she really a cop? So we knew at that point that I was going to be able to do that with him, to go undercover and infiltrate the fencing operation pawn shop.
Well, what'd you do? Did you walk in the pawn shop and say, hey, I'm a pretty lady and I want some jewelry?
No. So what the idea is that we were going to go in and sell them stolen goods. We're going to use him initially and then cut him out of the deal. So he thought he was buying the stolen goods from me eventually. But my undercover was that I was an exotic dancer stripper. So they love that, Mafia. That's what they do. They love that. They go to casinos, whatever, and that's their world.
Bada bing, bada boom, right?
Bada bing. Yeah. So provocatively, I needed a dress. We had to park across the street, but it's in the city. It's big picture windows in front of this pawn shop. But then once you get past it, it's almost like a bank teller where you've got the glass and the whole thing, the little slot that you put things in. And as we're walking across the street, I know at that point we're on surveillance and we've got the SWAT guys in the van watching as I'm doing my undercover. So I'm walking across the street with this guy and he's like, well, we got to really play this up. This is my ass. So basically as we got in there, he thought that he was going to be a little more friendly, like I'm his girlfriend. So next thing you know, his arms around my waist, him trying to just cuddle up and kiss on my neck. And I'm telling you, it took all my acting to say this freaking idiot, but allow him to do that and to be playful and get into freaking Academy Award winning acting just to make sure that we got in and we were able to do what we needed to do for the sting.
Yeah, I was actually going to ask that. I didn't know this guy was going to play boyfriend. I was going to ask if any of the, the people working at the pawn shop or the fencing try to make a move, try to, get handsy, anything like that.
Well, they did.
Yeah.
They still did, because once I did get in, because you know how it works with Undercover, you always got to cut out that middleman. You want them to do the deal with the cop. So while we were in the back room, we got to see the warehouse, and I was able to see all of the stolen goods. I mean, racks of, NHL jerseys and bikes and just equipment. And this thing was like behind a Best Buy, a warehouse of a Best Buy. I was just so shocked by it all. But once we were back there and I was slowly trying okay, this went good, everything else. The next time we went in there, something happened to our Mafia guy where he just kind of sniffed something wrong. And at that point it was an actual toe-to-toe. He's like, you got ID on you? And I had fake IDs made up.
Yep.
The rookie, novice, new detective left it in the undercover car.
Oh, crap. What was your name?
I used my own first name because it's just a matter of confusion. You don't want that to happen. And I had undercover, Lisa Taylor it was.
Oh, okay. Miss Taylor. Okay, gotcha.
Taylor. And I had this whole bit, where I live, where I grew up, all of that. So just because they do ask questions, they want to know. So at that point where he asked me for my ID, I got to a point where I said, oh boy, I have to be nonchalant about this. It's in my car. You're irritating me. So he's like, go get it. So now this is where the rough part is. And Sean, I think you would know, if I have to leave and go get that, I've got no wire, I've got no gun, knowing full well, they have no way of contacting me once I was in there. All I had was a little pager, and it wasn't even a panic pager. It was just like an alert to make sure that I'm okay. But there was no two-way communication. So I said, all right, I have to leave this joint and make a decision to leave and not come back in case they shake him down while I'm gone. So that was the fear. I walked out, I did my stoic thing and act nonchalant, watched the vehicle. Now SWAT guys are watching me in the van coming out without our guy, our bad guy, our informant. And that was it. It was like, right now I need to either abort or go back in, based on what my read was on the inside. Are they gonna shake them down? So I went to the car, I got it, couldn't communicate with those guys because it was in a direct line of where they can see. I went back into the business, flipped them off. I'm like, actually, I don't even have my ID. I have a ticket because I got pulled over, which was kind of cool and unique and different.
Absolutely.
He's looking at it and everything. I'm looking around and I don't see the informant.
Oh, shit.
Where the hell did he go? So, I get the sinking feeling, like what's going on? And then I see him riding a stolen bike in the warehouse, just going.
Hey, bikes are fun, man. I'd ride a bike in a stolen warehouse. No, I wouldn't.
So he comes out, he takes the ID, we do the deal, and then he books me for an exotic dance and wants me to meet him at the casino. And I'm like, this is
man,
good.
Jeez.
So how long did this operation go on before you had to
I just needed to go in 3 times. So we had the initial one and then two buys for me in order to get the search warrant that we needed, because that's what they like.
So how was it doing an exotic dance for a Mafia guy?
I know how it is. I've done them. They're great. I lived in New Jersey for a while. I know how to do that. So what other kind of interesting things did they have you doing since you had a unique appearance?
I posed as a little girl and got
really
with sex predators. And I think one of the biggest ones we had is somebody who's actually on the job in the Pentagon.
Oh,
communicating online with somebody he thought was 13 years old.
Yeah. You go get those bastards.
Just the naivete, the ignorance to not at work in the Pentagon.
Yep.
Oh,
so
man.
Those cases get turned over to the FBI. Once we do the conversations, he started sending me gifts. And, I was in the office getting recorded with an FBI agent there. Radio on, to something cool, a 12-year-old listen to, spinning around in my chair and talking like a little girl.
That's got to be hard to kind of just not want to reach through the phone and just
Howard,
strangle people.
the hardest part about that is because it becomes so explicit so quickly. And I got the FBI guys basically saying, just try not to go there with him. Try not to go there. He's just going to want to have a happy ending and just use, just try to diverge from it. There was like, oh, grandma's listening, and that sort of thing. But yeah, real creepy things, which, I ended up sharing in my book just because I want parents to be aware how they're coming after the kids, where they're meeting them, going to chat rooms, social media, all of that. I mean, the kids are curious. They're curious, and the whole idea of being with an older guy and, all of that is there.
Yeah. We tell our daughters we love them.
That's it. Yeah, we just talked about this on last week's episode, for the dads out there listening, man. If you've got a little girl, a daughter, 10, 12, 9 years old, or whatever it is, you got to tell them you got to tell them you love them. You got to tell them they're beautiful. You got to tell them how amazing they are, because if the first time they're hearing it is when they're online or it's from somebody through social media or something like that, man, they get to that age where that attention is, it's a big deal. It's nice to hear. And, if they don't hear that at home from their own dads, unfortunately, these type of things happen.
Do that, dads.
Get on track.
Absolutely. We've done some of those same type of stings here in Tulsa. We would have female officers that would, a lot of times actually for us, it'd actually even start out with FBI agents locally. They would, doing their online predator stuff, they would get involved in these conversations, and then they would just contact some of the female officers we had in the department. We had one for a while she was very small in size. I mean, she was an attractive female that just happened to be like 5'1". And they would have people travel in, the agents would say, hey, I'm 14 years old or whatever it is. And why don't you meet me over here? And they would put this female, she would dress like a 14-year-old kid would, and they would set her out in the park. And then they wait for these guys to show up and start moving towards her, and they'll take her down. So it goes on everywhere.
100%. I was undercover as a little girl in a movie theater.
Mm-hmm.
And the irony at that time, to show you the era, he chose the movie, which was Miss Congeniality.
Oh, wow.
So here we have an FBI agent undercover, and he's meeting an undercover to try to solicit her for sex.
In that movie. Wow.
That's irony at its finest, isn't it?
We got him.
So after that, I assume that you kind of needed a break from doing that all the time. I would assume that the burnout is pretty high on that.
Well, it's a 3-year. What I did, I was undercover narcotics. So when I did get promoted to detective, it was narcotics, but I was still borrowed for those, sex predator operations. I was borrowed for that and the Mafia thing. But mostly it was, we would get our informant, and a lot of times the informant would just do the deals. We record them and get the 2-3 and get the search warrant and go from there. So yeah, I had a good amount of undercover work that I did. But I love narcotics, but they only permit you to be there 3 years. I could have done that 10 years, I'll be honest with you. I just doing search warrants, because not only would I do this and set up the buys and have our informant, and then I would get in my SWAT gear and actually be able to storm the houses and businesses. And that was exciting.
What was it like being on a SWAT team as the first female? I assume that you had a pretty good reputation if they're allowing you to be on that special group.
Thank you. Well, I think here I think was what was key for me. When I was a 911 dispatcher, I got to know all the police officers and knew the SWAT guys. The commander of the SWAT team would borrow me as a 911 dispatcher to be a role player for the SWAT guys when they would do their scenario. So damsel in distress, right? The one that violence victim that pulls the gun all of a sudden when you're arresting the husband. So I was able to see these guys train, and I'm going to be honest with you, I was like scared to death. It was like one thing to be a police officer, but then to do the SWAT stuff was a whole different deal. And I just thought, oh God, these guys are awesome. Like, wasn't even a thought in my mind that I would ever be part of that team when I was a 911 dispatcher. So after 2 years on the job, still a rookie, but firearms instructor, like I said, and just killing it on midnight shift. I wanted to get an arrest out of the box, and I wanted to get 2 arrests by 8-hour shift, and boom. And then I got my court filled up, and I just loved the activity of it.
You were busy. Now, at least I'm not going to lie. When Howard, told me you were going to be our guest, and I did my little research and got onto your webpage there, and you've got great bio there. You've got clips where you've been on other television shows, news agencies, and things like that. And there is a picture of you. And if this is the SWAT attire you guys are wearing there, it's a little bit different than what we're wearing in Tulsa. The black leather pants,
Yeah.
The black tactical vest, I think there's knee-high black boots on, and the hat. So, let's talk about the SWAT attire. It's a little bit different.
So there was a kind of a famous photographer in Chicago who said it'd be kind of cool with the city landscape. Let's go out and do this and have something fun and something sexy. So I'm like, okay. So that was my actual vest. That was my leather, ballistic vest.
Yeah.
And then, I just hammed it up a little bit with those fun pleather pants.
Well done. Well, that's kind of like the firemen, the firemen, the
calendar firemen.
The calendars they do. There you go. We love our firemen. We love our firemen. Everybody loves them, those heroes.
Yes.
Hey, so tell us about the urine drinker, because
boy,
I want to hear this. Were they in the desert? Were they dehydrated?
Were they drinking Apple Crown or actual urine?
Yeah, that's probably the same stuff. Manufacturing Apple Crown.
So as police, you do what's called ambulance assist. You kind of go there and just find out what's going on. A lot of times the police will beat the ambulance there because they're already on the road. So I show up to this house for somebody who was in, a medical situation. And I get there, open the door, go in. He's got the door open, the whole thing. I get in and he's laid out. And I'm like, okay, you're check for pulse, the little bit that we learn, as far as being a medic before ambulance gets there. And I just know, this guy's eyes are going to the back of his head, the whole thing. And he's like, just go to the bathroom, and I'm going to the bathroom. And I'm like, did he take poison? Did he what? So I leave him there, I run to the bathroom. I don't know what he wants. I'm like, there's nothing in the bath, under the sink. So I go and look under the sink and I see a whole bunch of glass bottles filled with a yellow substance. I'm like, what is this? Is this poison? Is it toilet cleaner? I don't know what it is. So I run, I'm like, what is this? Like, it's medicine. He's like, give it to me. I'm like, I'm not going to give this guy this stuff. I don't even know what it is. And the next thing you know, ambulance starts coming in. I'm like, what's going on? I'm like, I think he took this. I don't know. He just kept telling me and directing me and he still couldn't talk. So twist it off, give it a little whiff, and lo and behold, he doesn't want any ambulance assist. He collects his own urine, he drinks it, and he thinks that's what's going to heal him. So not a great day. Not a great
day. Howard, you're a nurse.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the medical side of this.
Okay, cool.
Does urine cure anything? Snake bites? Can you pour urine on a snake bite? Or if you got bit by a snake, would you let me pee on it?
No, I'll let you pee on the snake.
Okay. Does urine cure anything?
A full bladder.
That is true.
It might lower your blood pressure a little bit if it's real full, but no, who drinks pee? I mean, the only people you hear about drinking pee are
there's a whole genre of that on Pornhub and stuff like that. So.
Yeah, but no, that's not healthy.
No,
not at all. Not 0 stars. Would not recommend drinking pee for your health. Drink water, 8 glasses a day, and that's a myth anyway. So we've got that. So you sound like you had a pretty good time. So what made you get out of the police force? What
made me leave?
Yes, ma'am.
So I'd been on SWAT concurrent with being on in patrol. So it was like 5 years on the SWAT team, 3 years undercover, 4.5 patrol, and total 7 years, ready to be promoted to sergeant. Took the exam, and literally that was my turning point. I said, the sergeants are the bosses, the sergeants are the penalizers, the sergeants are the ones pushing paper. They're out on the street occasionally, they're just disciplinarians. And I'm like, I don't want to be that. It was just, everything I did was so exciting. So I could have done a lateral transfer as a financial crime detective, and that wasn't exciting to me, white collar stuff. So I'm like, here I am. It was a crossroad. Go back to patrol, financial crime, or sergeant. And all three were not very compelling. So remember I said earlier, I would have stayed in undercover narcotics. I would have just continued, but couldn't do it. It was a 3-year tour. So I just got to a point like, now what? What am I going to do?
So what'd you get into after you got out of the police force?
So during that transition period, it's an odd thing that happened. I went to a Tony Robbins seminar, and it was like, okay, now what? Talk to me, guru. What am I supposed to do? I did this. I'm great at it. It was fun, but I'm not feeling it anymore. And part of me was like, I still love crime, and maybe I'll write a book, but I still didn't know where that was going to go. And I ended up meeting somebody and falling in love and getting married. And he happened to live in Montreal, Canada. So I
Oh,
left law
it's
enforcement,
really nice.
moved to Montreal. It's beautiful. And got married and wrote my book, Undercover Angel. And when that did come out, I started touring with my book. And then I started actually getting booked on television shows and becoming a crime analyst. So still have my foot in the door in law enforcement, which I love because, you know, I love trying to figure out what are people doing. And I told you in the very beginning, psychology was so important to me. Like, what is making these people do this? You know, I just tried to figure it out.
Well, we're pleased that you were our guest today. We really enjoyed that. What are you doing? What are you doing right now? You spoke about a book. Do you have a copy? You want to talk to us about your book a
I
little bit?
do. So Undercover Angel came out. This is my story.
Nice.
One of my undercover operations. My boss, funny enough, commander's name is Charlie, and they used to call me, you know, Charlie's Angel.
Charlie's Angel. There you go.
And I called my narcotic partner Bosley, which he did not like, but the whole department picked it up. So he was Boz to this day. He's a police chief now, and I always give him, you know, kind of a little bit of slack. I'm like, you know, if I was still on, I would have had that job. You wouldn't be sitting there. I was still on the department.
So is it coincidental that you're wearing the shirt with the angels on it, or was this designed specifically for
Well, I'm
this?
always wearing professional clothes when I'm doing the crime analyst stuff on TV. And
Of course.
So it's so buttoned up. And I said, okay,
And boring.
cocktails and cocktails. And you guys said casual. So
Yeah, we're casual.
got blue as an ode to LEO.
Yeah. So yeah.
We wear t-shirts all the time, t-shirts and hats. So what, being a crime analyst, you find that when someone asks you to be a crime analyst, is there an expectation of you have to present one side of it, or do you just give your
No.
candid opinion? What do you do in that
No,
situation?
it's really my opinion, which is great. So, you know, there's no expectation. There's no political agenda. I started out on Nancy Grace, you know, I did Steve Harvey, Dr. Drew, all of those kind of big shows. And then, you know, I'm honored to say I've been a regular on Law&Crime for close to 2 years now. And it's the murder trials. It's what happens behind the scenes. What are they looking for when they're on there collecting evidence? What are the police doing? I've worked with canines and narcotics and search warrants. So what's happening and what are they looking for? And why did they need the SWAT call out? And how's evidence packaged? And you know, how did the cops screw up? What did they do good? You know, so I'm very unbiased, like a judge, and say, yeah, you know, that's really bad that they missed that. That's unfortunate. It happens. We're all human. But, you know, let's look at the pros of what did happen. So.
Yeah, I think it's always good to have a non-biased police view of things.
Of course.
Police, I mean, police are humans. They're a little biased on some things, but when it comes to the job, most of them are professionals.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's it. You know, I mean, gosh, in my last trial I just had before I retired, you know, there were a lot of things that were exposed during my own testimony, you know, that I could have done better during the investigation. And, you know, I had to eat crow, so to speak, there on the stand and say that, and, you know, and I did the job for, you know, over 24 years and
Right.
I've investigated a shitload of shootings, and there were still some things I could have done better. You know, it is, we're humans. And, you know, if you're working for an agency where you got a bunch of cases coming your way, you're not going to get everything right every single time anyways. You know,
People they don't realize what the workload is like.
It's
and
tremendous.
You know, 24 hours a day, and we're working 18-hour shifts. We're turning around. We're going to court. We're going to bond hearing. And it's
Yep.
like, eyes are like, you know, you're doing the best you can. You really are.
Yep. On to the next one.
Absolutely. You can't have your cell phone in the courtroom either.
Did you learn that?
No, you told me that.
Oh, yeah.
You talk to me a lot. I listen to you. I know you don't think that,
All right.
but I do. Well, Lisa, it was a pleasure having you today. I must say that the Cutwater wasn't too bad.
No, it's actually not. It's I'm not a big tequila guy, but this is not too bad.
No, I drank tequila when I was too
Good.
young a lot, so I'm not a big. I can't drink much of it.
Thank
But-
you.
Well, thank you for being on. Do you want to plug your website, or where can people find out more information about you?
Facebook, Lisa Lockwood, Twitter, Lisa Lockwood. It's simple. It's
All right.
simple.
We'll
No
put your information up on Instagram tomorrow, so
Okay.
they'll see
Thank
you
you.
there.
Thank you, guys.
Hey,
Stay
Lisa, it was a pleasure. Thank you so much.
It was for me too. Thank
All right.
you.
Take care.